Hello, today's date is January the 17th, 2011, and it's about 2:23 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. I keep the date on all my videos. I always want to know when I recorded them. It's January 17th, 2011, and the name of this video is Are Unattractive Men Just the Losers of Society? Maybe a small note. I'll just say, are unattractive men just the losers of society? And in this video, I kind of want to ask the question, and I want to say this in a very non-derogatory type of way where I'm not creating conflict, okay? It goes like, basically, I've been thinking a lot about this. I was listening to, I'll be at first admit I have listened to the Just Bill show on the Blog Talk Radio, and I tend to I can't really get on the show, or I always have time to really listen to it live, so I'll kind of download the show when I get a chance. I'll listen to it. I'll see if I can muster up any new information. I always listen to something good on there. And there's a couple people that call into the show whose names I won't mention. There's several people that call into the show, and they're constantly complaining about how their lives plural, are going. And it centers around the fact that they continually harp on the issue that they're unattractive, they were born with this disability, they're unpopular, and they continue to go on and on about this issue. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because somebody had written me an email about 2.5, 3 years ago when I was doing my TFL videos, and they said, Steve, why can't you conclude that the people in the TFL movement or people around that type of environment are just a bunch of losers? And he said, I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but why can't you conclude that maybe there's losers and winners in society? And I've given a lot of thought to this, because I'm thinking that there's really no way to cure. I think that with TFL, the True Force Loneliness movement, the only thing that they can really hope to accomplish is to make people aware of what is going on, and that's about it. I don't think there really is any momentum, and this is the reason I feel this way. I don't feel like there's any momentum for this movement, because attractive people have unattractive people, particularly men in this day and age, but people in general. God forbid you're a man and you're unattractive, or even average looking, but there really is no incentive to put them in any other position but below the good looking people. I mean, if you think about this, if you are good looking, you pretty much write your ticket. I was at work the other day, and I was, I work in a lab. I work with students, and the guys that I work with, we were talking about, people and looks, and I think one of the guys I was talking to mentioned, a couple of the guys, he said, yeah, if you're a good-looking guy, you pretty much call your shots in the game of life. And as soon as I heard them say that, I just kept going on, like, well, why don't you be specific? What do you mean? Because I wanted to hear their specifics. And he says, well, you take an ugly guy to a job interview and you put him in there, and then you get a good-looking guy, and pretty much the good-looking guy writes his ticket. I mean, it's just a done deal. Now, it's possible if the good-looking guy's got a felony, he's going to have a harder time, obviously, than the guy who doesn't have a felony, who's not as good-looking. But generally speaking, people do judge you by your looks. So if people judge you by your looks, then the only conclusion that I can come up with is that it's really a no-win situation. I mean, let's think about this, people. How do you win in a game that is systematically rigged against you? I mean, how do you really fight a system if you've got 25th degree Asperger's, and you've got or autism, or some severe case of Asperger's, and you're not good looking, you got an elongated cranium, crooked eye socket, your chin's kinked this way, or you're unattractive? How do you fight a system that is totally opposed to you? That is. I mean, what are you going to do? And and I hear on the Just Bill show, this one guy that calls in the show, he constantly goes on and on and on about about society and how screwed up it is, and what we need to do, and I just don't really see an answer for it. I want to know specifically what these people that call the show really want to do about this. I mean, okay, you're gonna what kind of awareness are you gonna bring? And I admire the work that they're doing, because I find it fascinating that nobody else is talking about this issue. And I think that it needs to be addressed for anything but awareness. I think people need to be aware of the fact that looks matter. And I'll tell you why, because it's going to put a lot of this hypocrisy. I mean, if you can prove, for example, that if, like, let's say I put a personal ad on the internet, and I take I word everything exactly alike, only I put 3 different pictures. If I can prove that looks matter, it'll make a woman eat her words real quick. I mean, she won't be making comments like, oh, well, I don't care about looks, when we know it's a bunch of baloney. They do care about looks. But getting back to what I said earlier, the guy that wrote me a couple years back, he says, Steve, why don't you just admit that the people who are unattractive or are just the losers of society? And I've kind of concluded this in a very saddened way, that maybe they are the losers. And you know, you have to look at the fact. Now, if you are in a position where you are not attractive and you have to deal with this, and by the way, I put myself in the looks department around average, but I found out that in the dating game, let's face it, guys, average don't cut it. If you aren't up in the top 20% in the dating game in terms of looks or social status, you are nothing. And I surely am not in the top 20% by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe when I was younger, I was better looking, of course. Bill Greathouse has alluded to the fact that you're never going to keep your looks, and my God, that's a very good statement. I can't disagree with that anymore. You can't keep your looks forever, and so it's true. You know, you can't keep your looks, but I'm just confused about it, because I don't really think that there's an answer to it. I think that the only thing one who's unattractive can hope to do in an American society, say, let's assume you don't want to take the foreign route. You know, Winston Wu does the, happierabroad.com. Let's say you're not going to go overseas to meet a woman, okay? The only thing that you can hope to do as a guy is find some sort of meaning within your life. And find a hobby and a group of guys that you can be social with. Don't let a woman break the... And I'll tell you something, we can really screw this up. If you got a bunch of unattractive guys hanging out together and they bring one woman to the picture, let's say a bunch of guys play Dungeons and Dragons or World of Warcraft, you bring one woman into the group and they all start fighting over her. It's just insanely crazy. That can ruin a group real quick. But I think that there's got to be some sort of meaning that you have to find in your life, and accept the fact that you are a loser in the game of life. Like, again, I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense. But, you know, what are you going to do? And for the people that are going to get offended by me using the word loser, my question is what can you do to society to make it more friendly, ugly friendly? I mean, look at the fashion magazines you look at today. It's all about looks. Bill Greathouse is dead right when he says this. It is all about looks. See, Bill Greathouse and Dwayne Holloway have been at the lowest end of the totem pole in their whole life. And sadly to say, you have to be at the lowest end of the totem pole in the physical department to acknowledge this problem. And if you're average looking and you've had your success, I've had some success and some failures and some success, you're never going to be able to see the reality of how it really is. And now I understand it now. It makes perfect sense. All I have to do now is realize that looks are everything. Justin Bieber, Jake Pavelka, Zac Efron. I'm just looking at male guy, I'm not going to mention female names because you don't have to be super good looking to be a woman to get attention in this society today. But, you see it, and the only thing that I can think of is that you really can't beat this system, because the looks issue, I mean, what incentive is there for the rich and the powerful to make unattractive people marketable? There's no incentive. There's absolutely no incentive for the rich and the powerful, who are ugly, most of them, by the way. Some of them are just hideously ugly. But there's no incentive for them to market average to unattractive guys. Why should they market unattractive guys in their magazines when they've got tens of thousands of heterosexual studly guys in the top 10% that are dying to get an audition to be a model, dying to get an audition to be in a sitcom, dying to get an audition to be in be in a play or something, or be in Broadway, do a play on Broadway. There's so many competition. There's no incentive to make unattractive people, marketable. In fact, I don't think that if there were one George Sidini a week, it would make a difference. The Hollywood in Madison Avenue crowd would continue moving forward with looks. And by the way, on a side note, I think George Sidini was unattractive, hideously unattractive. If you don't believe me, check it. Get a look at that one shot that he had. He looked like a friggin' pedophile. Everybody said about George Sidini, by the way, oh, he was good looking. He looked like a handsome guy. He just went haywire. He was not good looking. I've thought about the George Sidini incident, and one thing he did not have going for him besides his severe autistic Asperger's is he had no looks. He had nothing. If George Sidini had been good looking, really good looking in the top, but he had Asperger's, he would have found some woman, average looking woman, several of them, that would have taken him under her wings. But that wasn't going to happen for George Sidini. And unfortunately, I'm going to do another video on that another time. But I just want to know your thoughts about the looks issue. What can you really surmise can be done about this? I don't think there's an answer for it. And again, I consider myself average looking, and I'll be the first to tell you, average don't cut it in this day and age. Average don't cut it in anything if you're a guy these days. And I'm just telling it like it is. And again, I want your thoughts. Don't have an answer for this personally. I'm just giving my observations. You all take care and you have a good night or day.